time to go way up north with Superior Mayor Jim Payne. Talk about some of the issues that, well, you're hearing about in the northwestern corner of the state. Jim, good morning. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you, Pat?
Very good. And you are joining us actually from Madison this morning because, again, the work of mayors and local government officials everywhere occasionally involves those treks to Madison to remind people, hey, we're up here too. Don't forget about us.
I try to get as many in before it snows as I can,
Yes.
when it's only a 5-hour drive.
Yeah, only at that point. And I recall, some of the legislators that I served with. I know one who regularly flew, but others who would make that long drive. And you hear a lot of books on tape, or
that's true. Yeah.
Or if you've got the hands-free device, you can make a lot of calls. But those are some long trips, absolutely. And we're gonna, in fact, let's start with the Superior Days, which is kind of an annual lobbying trek from the Superior area down to the state capitol. And it's been going on for, I believe, 41 years now. And so I remember when it first happened, and it was very new and novel. And you now have groups from other parts of the state. There's the Chippewa Valley Rally and others who come have all kinds of local civic and business leaders come to the state capitol and let legislators from throughout the state know more about that area. Is it something that is still, A, is it still happening with regularity? And B, do you continue to see value in it?
Yes, it still happens every single year in the springtime, most of the time as early as February, but we've experimented with some other times. This coming spring will be our 41st year, and because we did manage a very abbreviated version during the pandemic year of 2021, we've had consistency. And so even when it was very challenging to get down here, we still made some sort of a presence.
And does it make a difference? I mean, you have an area up there that is strongly Democratic, ranging from Superior, Ashland, Bayfield, Bad River, some of that area, and then a whole lot of rural area south of there that is predominantly Republican. And Superior Days is advertised as this bipartisan way to come together and talk about the area's priorities. Do you feel like it's still serving value that way?
Absolutely. I think you described it well. If you just look at election results, these northern counties are very blue. But, even when we're turning in 70% for Democratic candidates, that's 30% of the population that's still voting for Republicans. And when we bring a group of about 100 people to Superior Days, up to 50% of those people or more might actually be Republicans or right of center, And so coming together to agree on issues that matter to all of us seems very challenging, but we manage it every single year. And more than just what we're bringing to the Capitol and educating people down here, a lot of us are the ones being educated, because even among 2 or 3 legislative issues, many of the delegates will really only be joining for one that matters to them, but they're learning about the others. So it's folks from the business community learning about the crisis in education funding, or students in the high school learning how local government revenue works and why that matters to them. And it may only be 1 to 3 days down here, but those are issues that they're now fluent on throughout the political conversations the entire session.
We are talking with Jim Payne, the mayor of Superior, and talking a bit about Superior Days. And part of the reason I wanted to bring it up is that a former Republican state representative from that area, Angie Sapik, made some comments to Wisconsin Public Radio while promoting a book, which seems rather odd after one term in the assembly, but all about politics. And the person asking the questions made note that she had been absent for the 2 years of Superior Days while she was in office. Now, she did say that it has been a positive thing for everybody. She did talk about, family commitments and things like that. But what really stuck out to me was her line that said, I think they are going to cancel Superior Days in the future because it's just not as effective as it was in the very beginning. Do you agree or disagree with that sentiment?
Well, it's certainly been more effective than she ever was in the legislature. She never accomplished anything. And Superior Days has a very lengthy list of accomplishments. Generally, every single year, we're checking off some accomplishments. Maybe we don't get all the bills we want passed out of the legislature, but we meet with agencies as well throughout the governor's administration. That's multiple governors of both parties. But really, she wouldn't know the effectiveness of Superior Days. She has never been. She's never been to a single meeting about it up north or down in Madison, where we're having the conversations, not just with legislators, but with each other about what matters to us and how we can make a better community. So we're explaining to Madison how they can help us, but we're also meeting amongst ourselves. This is leaders and citizens from across the north, but especially Superior and Douglas County, talking about how we can improve our own communities. We gather in one space and do the work of politics together, which is the only way it's ever gotten done. So it was pretty offensive to hear somebody that thought of herself as one of our representatives that refused to represent us, that refused to even have conversations about what actually mattered to the people she was supposed to be representing.
Yeah, I also took issue with another line from the interview where she talked about the gerrymandering of the lines back and forth. The lines weren't gerrymandered back and forth. They were gerrymandered once to remove all Democratic representation from a heavily Democratic area. And then with the fair maps, once again, you had Democratic representation from the area. So I just felt a need to correct on the record. Gerrymandering, while both parties have done it over history, in this particular case, it was done one way and finally undone to make things, shall we say, a bit more representative for Northwest Wisconsin.
I mean, at least fair, the way the 73rd Assembly District, that's one we're talking about, was drawn. It was the textbook actual definition of gerrymandering. It looked like a salamander and it looked like a giant monster, and it had the effect it was intended to have. When Angie Sapik was elected, you saw this very strange thing happen in the actual turnout. The closer you got to her actual home where she lived, the worse she performed. She had to pick up votes from as far away as possible from people that didn't actually know her and only voted on a purely partisan basis. She could have never won an election when there was an actual opponent and people actually knew the candidates.
We're talking to Superior Mayor Jim Payne. We were speaking earlier about wheel taxes in the state and how some municipalities have felt the need to either adopt one or increase one, and all of the other funding challenges that come with local units of government. We're getting to that time of year. Where are things for the city of Superior and the budget that you're hoping to have adopted for the next year, and how that might have been impacted by things like the new state budget that recently passed?
I just released my budget this last week, and it does propose a minor levy decrease. It's actually not that minor. It comes out to 1.55%, which won't make a huge difference for people, but it won't be raising their city tax bills. Now, they still have a pretty significant tax levy, and likely an increasing one from the school district, because this last budget continued to fail to fix the school funding formula. And so the state is not adequately funding our schools, which means that taxpayers are. Now, as a mayor, I don't have a lot of control over that, except through vehicles like Superior Days, but I didn't want us to be part of the problem. So our levy will go down even while we're continuing to make increased investments in public safety and infrastructure.
And you're also working on, and we've spoken before about Connect Superior, and again, setting up a unique project that includes public investment in infrastructure for telecommunications so that private industries can come in and better serve the residents of Superior. We spoke last time about the ongoing construction and expansion of that network. Let's talk for a minute about, who's actually going to be using the network, the prospect for competition, because if I saw correctly, you've got a new company that is looking to provide services on that network.
Yeah, that's right. There's actually been Significant expansion since the last time we talked about it. First, we entered an entire new neighborhood. Superior's a large part of Superior's North End is now lit up and can be connected to Connect Superior. But yeah, Norvado is joining the network. We just signed the agreement last week, and it's a well-established internet service provider. But they also provide things like phone and cable TV service. So for those folks that wanted to get off of Charter but were relying on these other services beyond just connecting to the internet, they now have another option. So we're not just adding more people to the market, it's expanding the market itself. You can now purchase more services from Connect Superior. So we expect it to continue to grow pretty rapidly.
And in case I glossed it over too much, if people didn't hear our last conversation and they wonder, why are we talking about Superior? Because this is something you might want to adopt in your own hometown. Can you briefly give the overview of what Connect Superior is and how it's different from anything else that has been tried in Wisconsin so far?
Yeah, the legislature several years ago made it very, very difficult, next to impossible, for municipalities to create their own internet networks because they wanted to protect private monopolies. We got around that by only building the network. We don't sell the internet to anybody. We just own the wires themselves, that fiber that connects to your house. Then that creates an actual, like a super highway that internet service providers can all operate on. And so as a customer, I'm a customer, I can go online, I can choose from any of the now 3 providers and any of the packages that they offer with a single click of a button. I don't give a credit card, I don't put a ton of information down, and I am just connected almost immediately, and I can change just as easily. So it's the private sector competing on public infrastructure, which is, I think, the best relationship between it gives you the competition and the innovation that the private sector can provide with the public security of public infrastructure.
Right, and the more reliable service that can come when it's the public that owns the infrastructure itself. And that takes us finally briefly to the water utility. We've talked before about Superior has the only privately owned water utility in the state. You recently started the process of having a consultant study whether city taxpayers should once again own their own water utility. Is that process underway now?
It is. Yeah, we've had the first meeting on it, and it's developing very quickly. I think a lot of people were alarmed to see the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission has authorized the sale of our water, our utility, to a private international corporation, BlackRock. So we are still the only place on Lake Superior where that water is sold at profit, which is historically treated as something you do not do with Great Lakes water. Well, that's happening in Superior, Wisconsin. We're the only people in Wisconsin that don't own our own water. Now we're also exploring the electric and gas utilities as well. So we're underway.
So consultant looking into that, and we'll get updates from Superior Mayor Jim Payne. Mayor, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thank you.
And safe travels back up from Madison as well.